Welcome to Hands on Magic. In today's video, we're going to be going over some of the basic mechanics of how magic works. I know that if you've been a practitioner for a while, you will probably already know most of what I am going to be covering in today's video. But even for experienced practitioners, it's a good idea to refresh our knowledge of the basics occasionally. So now that we've gotten that little disclaimer out of the way, let's go ahead and get started on today's topic. Magic, in its most basic form, is using your willpower to change reality. While the methods that we use to alter our reality are going to be different based on our individual traditions and beliefs, there are some underlying fundamental laws of how magic works. Think of these like Newton's laws of motion for magic. Now, a few different traditions have their own versions of these laws, but I've done my best to condense them down into three relatively simple laws that describe how magic works. The first law that we're going to be talking about today is the law of belief, and it is by far the most important and at times the most troublesome law of magic. The law of belief, put simply, means that the beliefs we have about magic and about ourselves can affect how our magic works and how effective our ability to do magic can be. This law can change how our magic works on a very, very fundamental level. A great example of this is the way that some beliefs, like Wicca and its law of threefold return, can alter the way that a person's magic works. So if you believe in the law of threefold return, you are subconsciously incorporating that belief into your magical practice, which is why not everyone experiences the law of threefold return. The law of belief can also make our spells more effective if you have a lot of faith in yourself and in your abilities. However, it also causes our spell work to fail if we doubt ourselves. This is actually one of the most common causes for spell work to fail. In some cases, the law of belief's effect can also extend to the beliefs of the people around us. You can get a great boost to your spell work if you surround yourself with people who believe in your abilities. On the flip side of that, if you have someone who doubts your magical practice, they can actually interfere with your ability to do magic. If they know the spell work that you're attempting to do, they can interfere with it simply by disbelieving in your ability to do it, which is one of the reasons for why secrecy about your spells is promoted in a number of magical traditions. So, taking all of this into account, the law of belief means that magic can be very subjective, depending on our own personal beliefs and the traditions that we've been brought up in, so to speak. The next law that I'm going to be covering is what I like to call the law of attunement. This law is commonly called the law of attraction. However, that name doesn't fully capture the duality the effect has. The law of attunement basically means that if a target is magically tuned for or against a specific outcome, that target will either attract or repel that specific outcome. Another good way to think of the law of attunement is to think of it as the magnetic force of magic, meaning that it can either attract or repel depending on the way that it's used. Thanks to books and movies like The Secret, it is one of the most mainstream magical ideas out there, and is often used for active visualization to attune your own energy to a specific goal. The law of attunement also comes into play whenever we do binding or banishing spells, where we are specifically focusing on what we don't want, and through our intent, repelling or preventing it from happening. And the third and final law is the law of symbolism or correspondence. This law means that we can use one thing to symbolize something else. The law of symbolism is used by every magical practice, and the knowledge of it even predates the written word. With the law of symbolism, whether it's a stone like tektite, representing a connection to the cosmos, or a poppet, symbolizing a person, all of our little bits and bobs that we use in magic, and even the words we use, are symbolic representations of either the targets of our spells or the effects that we would like to manifest. This law of magic has more to do with the way that we think about and interpret the world around us than it does with the actual nature of magic itself. In a sense, through either the centuries of history or through our own personal interaction with these objects and ideas, we have created and granted these symbolic magical abilities to all of the materials and words that we use in our magical practices. Now that we've covered the laws that govern how we interact with magic, let's talk for a little bit about how magic actually does its spooky action at a distance. Now, unfortunately, at this time, we do not have a means to scientifically measure the force by which magic operates. However, we can determine that our consciousness has the ability to affect reality, sometimes in some pretty drastic ways. The effect of the human mind on reality is very widely accepted in the medical field of research, thanks to the studies done on the placebo effect. In those studies, they have found that when people are given a placebo, which is essentially a fake medication, they will sometimes still manifest the effects as though they were taking an actual medication instead of that placebo. They also discovered that this effect can, to some extent, be negated if the doctor who's prescribing the medication knows if they're handing out the placebo or not. Which is why these studies are now done without the doctor knowing which pills they are handing out. Now I'm going to very briefly attempt to clear up a common misconception about quantum mechanics and magic. It is currently a popular belief in the magical community that the observer effect, which states that you cannot observe something without it being affected, is a scientific proof of magical effect. But unfortunately, in reality, the observer effect just means that through the act of measuring something, we have to physically interact with it, which inevitably changes it in some small way, even if it's just bouncing light off of something so that we can see it. That interaction changes what we bounce the light off of. As you can probably tell from that description of the observer effect, it is a very mundane physical effect. However, in magic, we are often unable to physically observe the effects that we are causing, meaning that magic operates through a force beyond the observer effect. That being said, I do think that we will eventually be able to scientifically measure magic. Think about this. According to current scientific models, we cannot observe or even comprehend what 96% of the matter and energy in the universe actually is. What if some small percentage of that unknown 96% of our universe is this reality-altering effect we call magic, manifesting in some way we still don't understand? Well, that concludes the discussion for today. And since this is my first video, I'd like to take some time to tell you about some of the other subjects that I plan on covering in this video, or in this channel, I mean. I'm going to be adding more videos to this series about the fundamentals of magic, on subjects like intent and energy, and a more detailed video for each of these laws of magic. I also plan on doing videos about each of the different types of magic, like candle magic and puppets, and a series on the individual stones and their properties. I would also like to cover some more advanced topics like energy manipulation and dealing with negative entities. And eventually I'd like to do a series of videos on gods and goddesses, where we go over what they govern and what the traditional offerings are for that god or goddess, and perhaps a defining story about who that deity is. If you're interested in these topics, give this video a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe and hit that bell icon so that you can get notifications when I publish a new video. Also, if you have any ideas or subjects that you'd like me to cover, feel free to let me know in the comments below. Thank you for your time and have a great day.